My name is Nicole Zavlanik, and this is my Capstone presentation. My theme for Capstone is structured learning environments. The questions that guided my overall thinking were, how can a teacher engage and motivate learners? And then when and how can movement be incorporated into a lesson? My competency statement is, I am competent at incorporating movement into curriculum to better engage students in learning. An overview of my evidence pieces. My first piece of evidence is a summary of a movement article that gave me insight on how I can incorporate movement into the classroom. My second piece of evidence is one of my beginning lesson plans where I created and incorporated movement into a math lesson. And my third and fourth pieces of evidence are images that show students partaking in certain movement activities. So, my first piece of evidence was a summary of an article that I did in the class Teach 380, my health and wellness class. It was my starting point for learning how to incorporate movement. Teach 380 opened my eyes to the advantages of movement within the classroom. The article in which I summarized discussed how movement can be added into any subject area effectively and efficiently. It also reveals the important lessons students can learn from engaging in movement activities, such as teamwork, taking risks, being accountable, sharing, and becoming good leaders. I feel that these attributes are crucial for kids to obtain in order for them to be successful in the classroom as well as life. So within my summary, I included a quote from this article. The quote reads, "They need not to be dancers or even comfortable with their bodies in order to use kinesthetic techniques effectively. They need only learn how to recognize the links between curriculum and creative movement and then ask their students to embody learning." I included this quote because I relate to it on a personal level. I feel this quote pertains to me because I am not a dancer. However, I am capable of finding the connection between movement and curriculum. Then I can work to create an activity to incorporate movement into a lesson. So my first experience with incorporating movement was during a math lesson in my sophomore year practicum. So in this particular lesson, students were learning about identifying sides, angles, and vertices of two-dimensional shapes. The movement activity I incorporated had students engaging with their peers. The activity required the students with a shape card to find their classmates with the corresponding sides, angles, and vertice cards. So a little breakdown of the activity. So I would give a student a card with a shape, the number of sides, the number of vertices, or a number of angles, and they would have to find their peers that had the same, or the cards that matched whatever shape they had. So this activity required students to be engaged in the lesson by getting them out of their seats and working with their peers. This activity was useful, however, I would alter it in a couple ways. I would change the activity so that the students were working more hands-on, such as having them create their own shapes on the floor using Scotch tape. And then they could individually identify the number of sides, vertices, angles that their shape had. And then this activity could be repeated by having students create a new shape and then identifying the new parts. So further adding movement into the classroom. So my first activity was with a second grade class. We were outside doing some chalk math. So in this activity, students were outside completing math problems with chalk on the pavement. Once we were finished with one problem, the students would get up, run to a new spot, and then continue to work on new problems. This activity really got students out of the classroom and excited to participate in math, and I found that even the most reluctant students were engaged and enjoying this activity. My second image comes from a group of resource students that I work with. They're all first grade students, and we are working on sight words. So with this particular group of students, I've really struggled to find ways to keep them focused and involved. So in this particular activity I created, students wrote their sight words onto a twister mat, and then I would read them a word and they would get to choose a body part that they wanted to put on that word. I really wanted them to write their words on the mat so that we could practice reading and writing the words. And the students overall loved this activity and they were engaged the entire time. So the students' reaction to this activity were great. And now every time we practice sight words, they ask if they can play sight word twister. Another one of my groups happened to see this activity partaking as well, and now they also want to play Twister. So all in all, the positive reactions that I've received from my students have revealed that this lesson was a success. So my overall growth. So what have I learned and where am I now? My first piece of evidence gives you an insight on my starting foundation to incorporating movement within the classroom. The article in which I summarized really opened my eyes to the importance of movement. I then branched out to creating movement activities of my own with hopes that students would become more engaged. I have further progressed and evolved my ideas from trial and error. Where I'm at now, I believe I can effectively incorporate movement within a lesson to engage students. Furthering my knowledge. So how am I going to continue to grow and incorporate movement within the classroom? So to further progress in this area, I will continue to research effective ways to incorporate movement within the classroom in which to better my students. I will continue to search for and develop new and innovative activities to create the opportunity for the students to be more engaged. My hopes are that by students being more engaged, they will retain more information and will continue to grow as students.